You mentioned earlier about self-worth and how to keep our self-worth even when we're dealing with stress. How does someone keep their confidence up, their self-worth intact, their identity full when they're dealing with toxic stress? Is it even possible?
Yeah, it's a great question. The idea of feeling like we are only as good as, and we need the next thing to keep feeling good about ourselves, good as our performance or what we can, acquire, et cetera. Those are all very, very strong messages that we all get from society. And that is something that we can cut through and just realize that we have inherent worth. Some of the ways of doing that, there's some really interesting stress research showing that, like, if you are about to, let's say, play, in a competitive basketball game, and everyone, and your value and your role, your identity is as, this is what I'm good at, this is what people care about me. And so that's an incredible level of threat and stress. And, you've dealt with this as a professional athlete, and performers deal with this. And so even, a student who has a test and whose identity is I'm going to excel in academia will have the same kind of threat of, this is what I care about most, this is, how I define my worth. So here's a hack for that. You can remind yourself, or write it out, what you value in life. Write your values. That's only going to be one of them, this one area of life. And social roles that you fill, that you care about. Friend, parent, being a team player, taking care of an animal, whatever it is that makes you feel purpose, that makes you feel good about life, that you value, those are part of our identity. Our identity is vast and diffuse. But when we think all the eggs are in one basket, and if I do well, it's catastrophic.
Yeah. So
we can fight that. So research has done all these clever studies where they have people write out their values right before a stressful event or a test. And people, it actually arms them so that their ego is not threatened. Their ego is all of a sudden this big complex social identity that you can't just poke through based on this
when
one.
you have your values.
When you are aware and list your values, and it's not just this one area of what you've been trying to perform or show.
Not like a skill that you have that you're known for.
Yeah.
And shaping that as your identity, but also the social roles that you care about, those values as well.
Yes. Yeah.
What happens if we don't have values? How more susceptible to experiencing stress are we?
So if we're just thinking, this is all that matters in my life at this moment, then we're also thinking, I won't survive this if I do badly. So it's this survival threat. We all have values. We just haven't identified them necessarily. So like I have a list in the book of which of these 10 values, choose 3 that are important to you or write your own. And so, you'll see like caring about nature or being, having religion or spirituality. And there's just all sorts of roles that we play and things we care about that are actually really important about who we are, and they remind us of our inherent worth.
Sure.
Yeah.
How would you say we start to develop a stronger mindset to be able to manage and take on more stress?
Well, that's it. No one's ever asked me that. How can we take on more stress?
Or to take on stress better?
Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, the reason why I'm asking that is because I feel like if someone develops a big mission for their life, a big purpose, it doesn't mean it's just going to be this easy process. If you're going for something bigger, if you're like, I want to take on ending, the suffering in humanity or whatever it is, ending hunger or whatever, something, if you're taking on a big purpose, not saying that's what you have to do, but for someone that wants to take on a big purpose, it doesn't mean everything's going to be easy. There's going to be challenges and adversities you face.
Yeah.
So if someone does want to do that, how can they strengthen their mind to manage and handle the amounts of stress that could potentially come.
Yeah.
Before the interview continues, if you feel like you're not living your most authentic life, not leaning into your purpose, and not living the life that your future self would be extremely proud of, I've written a new book called The Greatness Mindset, and I think you're gonna love this. Through powerful stories, science-backed strategies, and step-by-step guidance, The Greatness Mindset will help you overcome all the different challenges in your life to design the life of your dreams and then turn it into your reality. Make sure to click the link below in the description to get your copy today. Okay, let's get back to this video.
I love that question. I will attempt to give you an answer, and I would love to hear your answer too,
Yes.
because you have taken on empires or different challenges
Sure.
in your stages. So I feel like when we get really passionate and committed to, big vision, we need both the muscle of I am the lion. I am, empowering statements that are grandiose and energize us and make us feel like we have the resources, we can do this. And we need the acceptance and letting go that we don't control the big outcome. We only control our efforts and our
Yes.
responses right now. So it's this kind of dynamic of like controlling what you can and, with the positive stress and the adrenaline, as well as the letting go part of the time of the outcome. So we've learned this from
Yes.
activists. So it reminds me of like what I've learned about climate activists. And there is a lot of burnout, and there is a lot of beautiful coping by basically dwelling in the communal action with others that
We're all
you care
in this
about.
together. We're in this together.
You can't do it alone. Like it's completely about team building
yeah.
and relationships, and that brings the joy of like this communal activity. There's something called communal collective efficacy or communal efficacy. So we think so much about like, do I have the confidence? Do I have the power? That's important, but really, if you're trying to do a heavy lift, it's like, do we together believe we can do this?
Interesting.
And because you're not alone, it's like a magnified, synergistic, collective efficacy.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
And that can go a long ways.
Right. So be the lion. Is that part of your
That's part of the
prescription?
yeah.
The,
So that
the 7 days? Is that what
yeah.
it is?
So the part of that is this idea that you can, the lion is chasing the gazelle, and the gazelle is having this fear response, and the lion is having this really adrenaline-driven, positive stress response that she's going to have this great meal. And so there's all this, anticipation of reward. So that's quite different than the threat response.
Yeah.
And so thinking about like, can we refocus on, instead of like, what might go wrong, what we'll lose, we're not good enough, to feeling hopeful, enthusiastic, confident, like all those emotions that go along with that adrenaline.
Right.
And that whole mindset shift is actually changing physiology too. It can help us actually have a stress response that we call the challenge response, where more blood is going to the brain.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
I mean, that's what you
the
do.
be the lion mentality,
Let's be the
right?
lion, yeah. So when you perform, I'm dying to hear about like how you manage the stress of, everyone's watching you and you can't make a mistake. And
I look at it as exciting. I look at it as more of exciting, and I train myself to be excited about the opportunity, because I feel like pressure is a privilege in certain levels, in certain arenas of life. Not in all areas, but in certain levels of performance, pressure is a privilege. To be able to have a stage to speak on in front of thousands of people is a privilege. And the opportunity for that stress, that potential to like something to go wrong, right? And so the excitement around it, the preparing stage, the strategy stage about how's the speech going to go, or whatever it might be, or a big interview or something where like now is the moment. It's a privilege to be able to sit across you or some great athlete or whatever it might be, to be able to have a conversation. So it's preparing, it's visualizing, and then it's being, oh, what do I need to say right now? What could I say that could get someone to be like, wow, I've never been asked that question before, or sharing a response they've never shared before. It's like something for me where there's this gold in the moment. And for me, that's exciting. And it also means that you could mess up and you could not do as well. So you've got to be sharp. You've got to be excited and anticipating something going good. So for me, that's the way I think about it. And yeah, it's just really about the exciting feelings as opposed to ruminating on the nervousness or what could go wrong.
Yeah, beautiful. Total exemplary of lion versus gazelle. So like when we are feeling the fear state, we're like, okay, my heart's pumped, like I feel the stress, this is not good, right? So then we stress about stress, we're not going to do well. So rather than focusing on all of the risks and what could go wrong, we can actually view that stress response as like, this is exciting, my body's excited, my body is energizing my mind and my brain and oxygenating it. And that whole reframe to the stress response is here to help me, it's going to help me cope, it's going to help me go better, that goes a long way. Like in lots of studies, people perform better, they recover from stress more quickly if they're saying those things. They're just reframing what our body does to help us.
And what's the values affirmation? Is there an affirmation that you say to yourself in that process, or?
So I would say that the affirmation is right before we're preparing to do something or perform. We want those kind of self-worth statements that remind us, well, I got this. And we can also do that for other people. And it's very...
it's like being a positive coach to yourself or someone else.
It's our beliefs matter, our body listens. So yes, so those are kind of the positive affirmations. The values is really just like, have a list. You can do it a one-time thing. Have a list of your values, remind yourself so that you're not just how well the startup does defines your value in life. And it's chronic toxic stress, so like really ongoing for years, that is what is bad for health. The short-term stress, we're gonna go there, but it's like, oh, that's a totally different story. That is like, we harness that for good and we perform that way and we do well that way and we grow through stress.